committee to order. And a quick roll call of members. Ed Kunkel, I believe I saw Ed.
Present.
All right, and Commissioner Makia is unable to join us today. Joe Downing. I have not seen Joe. Lisa Partially, representing the City of Olympia. I don't see Lisa. Joan Cathy. And I don't see Joan. Joseph Richardson. Joseph is with us. Elaine Clam from City of Tenino. Thank you, Elaine. And Kirsten Presley from Bucota. I thought I saw her name. Nope, okay. Richard Moon, District 2.
Yep.
Richard is here. Greg Schonbugler just came in the room.
Yep, sorry,
Hi,
Mike.
Greg, but you're good. Chad Sutter.
Here.
Excellent, thanks, Chad. David Nightingale.
Here.
Welcome, David. Laura Busby from Ecology. I thought I saw Laura here earlier.
I'm here.
Great, thanks, Laura. And do you want to run through staff real quickly? And then we do have some guests in the room today too. Jeff?
Certainly. First off, let's see, I see Karen Weiss over there from the county. We also have going to the list, Scott Keith. And in the room with you, we have Danielle Winsky, who is filling in for Amanda today, since Amanda's on vacation. And Ayla Turnquist also taking minutes in the room there as well. Rob Pudner, I see his name there. I think for staff, that's it, I believe. Then for guests, do you want to introduce the ones in the room? Because I can't see who they are.
Sure. We have Laura.
Yeah.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Laura Pappas. I live in the City of Olympia and I'm an interested member of the public.
Thank you for joining us. And
Yeah, Stuart Bittford, Environmental Health Manager for Thurston County Public Health Social Services.
great, welcome. And
Kimberly Graham, also Public Health, Social Services, Solid and Hazardous Waste.
great, wonderful.
And then additionally, we have Wendy Mifflin, who'll be presenting today. Also, Tracy Bills, also from HDR.
Good morning.
Let's see, Ron Jones from Olympia.
Oh, thank you.
Tom Rupert from LeMay.
Good morning.
Let's see, Steve Gilmore from Republic. And have I missed anybody? Oh, Gary Franks. There we go. I see him.
Olympia.
I think that's it.
Okay, very good. Welcome all. Have you all had a chance to take a look at today's agenda? And if so, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I so move.
Thank you, Elaine. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Greg. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Our agenda is approved. And if you've had a chance to take a look at the minutes from our September meeting, I would be interested in a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thanks. Ed, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, corrections before we take a vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from our September meeting, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, our minutes are approved for the September 6th meeting. Public comment, we did receive a letter. Jeff, do you want to quickly review that letter with us?
Certainly. Okay, we received a letter from a woman named Kira Jensen, who's a current Master of Environmental Studies candidate at the Evergreen State College. You all received a copy. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to read that. The reason, again, that we're bringing this to the group is that it was addressed to the SWAC. So as we had one recently, I think a couple months ago, additionally it was addressed to the SWAC. So just a kind of a quick review. She's trying to prepare her master's thesis topic and related on the subject related to what else I can do related to organics. So she had some questions. She was also looking to potentially discuss with somebody, and that could either be somebody here on the SWAC or it could even be staff here at the Public Works, to discuss current systems around organic waste. I think she's trying to come up with some potential projects for her master's thesis. So again, if everybody had the opportunity to look at that, I mean, if you have ideas as far as if the committee wanted to, or somebody wanted to volunteer to interact with Kira, or staff here would be more than happy to as well. We have between like Amanda and Danielle who's there, who's also working from the education and outreach side of organics, to be willing to meet with her as well. So open it up for discussion and any feedback that this group would have.
So we are bringing this to you because she addressed the letter to the SWAC, as Jeff noted, and she may be reaching out to a few of us. So just wanted you to be aware that that's out there. And yes, Laura, you have your hand up.
Be happy to refer her to organic resources that we have through Ecology. If whoever responds wants to give her my contact, I could follow up.
And it looks like Steve Gilmore is willing to have a conversation with her as well about the work that Republic's doing. So that's great. Oh yeah, and Greg too. Greg's also raised his hand in the room. So we've got a great representation of folks. Thank you, everybody.
And we give her a tour, so.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Out of that level.
Not only a conversation, but a tour of Silver Springs. That would be awesome. Anything else about that?
I think
Or
that's really it, is looking to get, hopefully some folks that are willing to contact and have a discussion with her. So hopefully get her where she would like to be. So
Great.
sounds like
Good.
we have several people that are willing to have that conversation. And of course, we are always open from the county's perspective to that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. Lori, did you have anything you wanted to add?
If you're gonna conduct a tour, Greg, I would be very interested. It's
Sure.
very, I'm interested in
Anytime.
understanding more of your interviews and so on. So,
Yeah, I'll give you my
perfect. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So moving on to old business, I don't believe we have any. And now we're moving into new business to hear from Wendy about the South County Transfer Station. Wendy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Danielle, are you going to run the PowerPoint?
I can if you would like me to.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. Hold on just a second while I get it up and ready. Bear with me here. Share my screen. Here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, ready to go. Next slide, please. So I'm here to discuss and make a presentation today on the Thurston County, South County Transfer Station site evaluation. This project has been going on since late 2020, early 2021. And so as a little bit of background and introduction, in 2021, the county began the evaluation process to look at the potential of developing a new transfer station to replace the Rainier and Rochester drop box sites in the southern portion of the county. And I think you're all aware of that. I think we've, gone through some of this as part of the stakeholder engagement. So in 2022, the county did some stakeholder engagement and outreach on the potential siting. And then in 2023, the county determined that maybe a more in-depth property search for viable parcels should be undertaken. And so we're going to kind of go through all of these different phases as part of this PowerPoint. So next slide, please. So with some additional background information, the Thurston County Solid Waste Management Plan, which a number of you were a part of in the adoption process, was adopted in early 2021, I'm thinking, and is a 2021 through 2026 plan that recommended implementation of improvements for the Rainier and Rochester drop box sites, which are also outlined in the county capital facility plan. And also the county wanted to make sure that services for solid waste are high quality with fiscal responsibility as you move forward with changes to the solid waste system, you know, not only to the South County Transfer Station, but potentially to the Waste and Recovery Center as well. There are a number of regulatory and permitting requirements that go hand in hand with looking at updating a potential transfer station site in the South County, and those are listed here just for information for the SWAC as we move forward. Next slide, please. So in 2021, the county took a brief look at the potential siting a transfer station in the South County and did a site evaluation report. That report was not brought forward to the SWAC when it was completed, because after we completed that report, the county wanted to make sure that there was a lot of public involvement. But I'll go through the 2021 site evaluation here to start, because it flows into the 2023 site evaluation. So we had a number of criteria that we looked at, and those are listed on this slide. Of note, when we did the 2021 siting criteria, we were looking for a site that was more than 4 acres, more than 8 acres in size, vacant land or limited buildings. And then at the end of going through the siting criteria and finding potential sites, 7 sites were brought forward and assessed through a weighted criteria, which you can actually see in Appendix A of the actual report that I think was released to the SWAC with this PowerPoint presentation. Next slide, please. And so out of the 2021 report, you will see the sites that were determined as potentials for evaluation. A couple of things on this slide of note. There are 2 airports in the South County that caused some issues with siting a transfer station there. The FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, requires that transfer stations not be sited within an airport buffer zone. And that buffer zone is 5,000 feet for basically prop airplanes and 10,000 feet if they're using Jet A fuel, which means they're jets. So you can see that we have 2 potential airports that don't allow for siting of a transfer station or would make siting difficult within that area. And so this is a map of the 7 potential sites that we looked at in 2021. A number of them are county-owned properties. A couple of them are county pits, of course, the Rainier drop box site, the Rochester drop box sites, and then some other private properties that were looked at as we went through the evaluation. Next slide, please. And so we prioritized that list based on the criteria, and 2 sites came forward for potential siting. The first one was the county site A from the map, which is the current Rainier drop box site. And the second site was a privately owned site on Military Road. And I need to say that that site is owned by Greg Schoenbachler. So I need, and he was kind enough to talk to us during the 2021 study. We chose that site because it was easy to take a look at, but he did bring forward that he owns a number of potential sites that could be used. So I need to make sure, Greg, as we go through this, we don't have a conflict of interest when we talk about sites moving forward. So
Absolutely.
you're sitting there in the room, right?
Yep. Thank you for mentioning that. I want to
Okay.
have that out in the open right away. So thank you.
Yep, I want to make sure there's no conflict of interest as we move forward. But he was very courteous in allowing to look at property that he owns. Both of these sites are zoned as a rural residential resource, 1 house to 5 acre zoning, which will require the county to submit an application for an essential public facility. But basically all other permitting required for these 2 sites from 2021 would be fairly straightforward to go through to site a transfer station. Any questions on the 2021 site information that's presented here? Okay, moving forward, next slide. I'll kind of buzz through these because I've already made a presentation to you on the stakeholder engagement process. But I think, as we all know, the county conducted a pretty in-depth stakeholder engagement process. We went out and did a number of survey respondents at both the Rainier and Rochester Dropbox sites. And I've already gone through with you previously what the surveys said. But I think the basic response is that, a number of them were willing to travel and that they would like to see 7-day per week availability to the sites. They were looking at some additional services that they would like that are not currently offered at the Dropbox sites, which are organics, household hazardous waste, tires, and appliances. And then from the current contractor and Republic Services and Waste Connections, they were looking at centrally located to their routes or to haul to the rail yard as some of the top priorities moving forward. So let's move into the 2023 South County Transfer Station site evaluation. So next slide, please. So again, we issued siting criteria exactly the same as 2021, except in 2023, we looked for a site that was more than 10 acres in size. We felt that the previous study at 8 acres might be limiting us a little bit, and we saw that with some of the properties that we looked at in 2021. So in addition to the initial siting criteria, we evaluated 37 sites with that criteria. And then we narrowed it down to 12 potential sites, which were assessed through the weighted criteria that you see in Appendix A of the report. And those weighted criteria were legal and regulatory requirements. We wanted them to meet some zoning and siting requirements, be outside of prime ag lands, be outside the residential zone, look at FAA airport restrictions, and then forest designated areas and land designated as a park. And you'll see a number of those criteria looked at in the report. We also looked at level of service, making sure the site would be centrally located. We also made sure that it would meet the plan goals from the solid waste management plan and public safety requirements. There's a lot of vehicles and traffic that go into a transfer station. So we wanted to kind of look at the roads and road access and what that would take. We wanted to look at site size and topography. That's why you see we went to the 10 acres in size rather than the 8. And then utility availability, looking for power, water, those kind of things that would be close to the site because they would be very expensive to lay into a site moving forward. And then efficiency and cost to make sure that the site meets criteria for the county through 2050. So next, and all of that's in Appendix A, and our rankings are in Appendix A from those criteria. So next slide, please. So out of that, you will see sites on the map of the 12 sites that moved forward into the final look for property. And so basically a number of the sites from the 2021 study move forward. You will also see some additional private sites that move forward as well. You will see that the airport again plays a part in sites that we can look at. So private site H on the map, while it had a good location, also falls within that airport zone. The airport there, it's not truly an airport. A person has a registered airport where they fly. I can't remember what the name of the plane is, but they fly their own private plane out of there. And so want to be careful about how we locate near them. Any questions so far on the map or any of that before I move forward?
Go ahead and speak up, or if you want to raise
Yeah.
your hand, that's okay too, but I would say go ahead and speak up with your questions for Wendy.
Had the question that airport, is that a jet fuel rated airport, or is it strictly ice engine type aircraft?
Yeah, it's a prop plane that she flies out of there. I can't remember what it's. She flies it in for parades and things like that as well. I can't remember what her name is, but it's a private airport prop plane.
Okay, and sounds like it's an antique or something like that.
It is, yeah.
Okay, and it's just 5,000 feet.
Yes.
Opposed to a 10,000 feet. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Yep.
Thanks,
Other
Richard.
I
Yes.
had a question. This is Laura with Ecology. I was curious if there were, I didn't look at the appendix with the list of criteria. Were there any environmental justice considerations given to these sites?
Not in the initial review. I think that would be the next step moving forward. I think that in the South County, it's so limited as to where you can actually put a site there that we did not look at environmental justice as one of our criteria when we assessed.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I think we're good to move on, Wendy.
Okay, next slide, please. And so with that, similar to the 2021 study, two sites from the 2021 siting study move forward, which would be County Site A, which is the Rainier Dropbox site, Private Site D, which is Greg Schoenbachler's property, and then Private Site L, which is a privately owned site on Gibson Road. All of them are, in the 30-acre site range. All of them are zoned the same rural residential resource, which makes it a little bit easier to put a public essential facility, which a transfer station would fall into. So those are the three sites that moved forward. Next site, please. And you can see we have a picture of each one of them. I think you all know what the Rainier Dropbox site looks like, which is County Site A. It's a really good site. It's actually a county-owned piece of property that has room for expansion that was a former pit, gravel pit. Private Site D is a fairly flat piece of property that is pretty wide open for development. And then privately owned site L is also a fairly flat. It has a pretty good swale in the middle of it. But other than that, basically open sites that the county could take a look at. So next slide, please. With that, we did some preliminary sizing, site layouts, and some probable costs. We're looking at approximately a 24,000 square foot transfer building, which would be a column-free interior high bay metal building with a maneuvering area inside the building for customers, 13 customer unloading bays, 2 loadout hoppers, which could have either trailers or a compactor staged in them, a paved roadway network, transfer trailer parking. As the stakeholder engagement brought out, people really want recycling and household hazardous waste collection areas, also organics collection and potential processing, whether the current contractor determines that they're going to process on site or bring it back to the work, still need a lay down area for organics. Would also have scales and scale house, need utilities. And then there would need to be some site investigations and earthwork, because a transfer station, as you all know, when you look at the work, needs elevation separation in order to have the upper area for people to dispose of their materials on a tipping floor, and then a loadout tunnel. I think what we're looking at is a little bit different layout than the current work layout. We are not looking at the multi-elevation separation building that the work currently is. You would see a flat tipping floor with customers being allowed to dump on the flat floor, and materials then loaded into containers. So that's what we're looking at as part of our preliminary sizing. So next slide, we have 3 slides in a row with potential layouts that HDR has developed for each site. And so the first site that you see is the Rainier Dropbox site. And there are utilities already on site there. We will be looking at developing to the south of the current Dropbox site. And you'll see where the transfer station layout would be, how the scales and scale house would fit. We would leave the current recycling area as is, so customers would still come in and recycle to the left of the ingress road. And then you'll see an organics area and some trailer storage. As you look at that map in the lower southern corner, you will see that we're trying to stay away from some houses there. There have been some houses that have developed around the top of the pit on the, what would that be, the southeast side of the property. So with our layout, we tried to stay away from that. We also believe that with this layout, there would probably need to be some road improvements on, what's the road? Can't read what the road is. The inbound road coming into that facility, Rainier Acres Road. That road would probably need some turn lanes added into it in order to accommodate the transfer trailers and then the customer volumes. So that would be the potential layout for the Rainier Dropbox site.
Hey, Wendy, just a quick question. If this is the site that's chosen, will the current Dropbox facility remain open during construction of the new transfer facility, or will it have to close?
We would be hopeful that it would remain fully open until we have to put in you'll see an access road kind of down the middle that's to the current site. We would want the site to remain fully open.
Okay.
So that's why you see the design the way it is, bringing it off to the south.
Got it. Thank you. And David also has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Wendy. So
hi,
thanks
Dave.
for sharing. Hi, how you doing? So as I recall from the survey from the citizens, there was the top 2 requests were for organics, which you've got outlined here. And the other was for household hazardous waste service in South County. And is that going to be integrated into the transfer station building, or what's the thought on that?
I think what it would be is a separated area for HHW drop off. And it's not shown on the first map here, but it would, well, you kind of see it. It says drop off in HHW where the current recyclables are. Right on the edge of Rainier Acres Road. And so what we would be proposing is probably a separate area, probably a small facility with potentially HHW that's collected there, either being containerized there or actually hauled to the facility at the Wharf. And that hasn't been determined yet.
Okay, I couldn't read that, so thanks.
It's pretty little, isn't it?
Yeah,
I have to take my glasses off to see it.
Yeah, it needs to be the same size as the transfer station building, I'm afraid. So, but that's go ahead.
Yeah.
Thanks, David, for that question. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, so let's move on to the second site, which is private site D. This has a little bit different layout than you would see at Rainier and Rochester. The site is quite a bit larger and undeveloped. So you will see that ingress comes from, I'm trying to think what highway that is. Greg, what highway is that?
Military Road Southeast.
Military Road, thank you. So ingress would come from Military Road, customers would come in. There would be a drop off in HHW area that could be accessed prior to the scales. And you'll see that on the map. 2 inbound scales, 2 outbound scales, the transfer building, the organics area, some trailer storage. This piece of property has a little corner of it that has been zoned as agricultural long-term land. And so we're trying to stay away from that as we did the layout here. There is also the trail, the Chehalis Trail, and that runs on the kind of the, what would that be, the eastern side of the property. And we tried to stay away from that as well and make the layout look good. I think there would be some development needs in order to be located next to the Chehalis Trail there that the county would have to take into consideration. And please remember that we only use this piece of property that Greg's group owns, but he has a number of other pieces as well. But this one really fit with how a transfer station could look at this site.
So Wendy, if one of these 2 sites that are privately owned are selected, would the county purchase them or would they work out a lease agreement? Do you have some early thoughts on that?
I think it could go either way, and maybe I need to defer to Jeff a little bit. You know, from my perspective, operationally, I'd want to own the property. You know, I wouldn't want to lease because there's going to be a lot of infrastructure. My guess is that the full development is probably going to be in the $10 to $15 million range. And I don't think you would want to just be leasing that property if you had that amount of development from the county's perspective. But I'm going to leave that to Jeff.
And I think generally I agree with Wendy, you know, since as you mentioned, it'd probably be, you know, 11 to 13 million-ish investment. But I think that included purchasing of the property as well. But, you know, with that level of investment, I think it would be hard to put that on leased property because with that amount of infrastructure.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going with my question, and we factored in the cost of purchasing the property. So thanks for that. David, is your hand up?
Yeah, I just can't quite lower it, but let me try here. Okay, there we go.
All right, no worries.
Got it.
Looks like you've been successful. Any other questions for Wendy at this point before we look at the third site? Let's go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, next slide, please. The third site, privately owned site 3, is on Gibson Road. And you will see that the property is a little bit different in how we have to situate a transfer station. So you will see that there are some houses at the northeast corner and then at the bottom of the site, which would be the southern end. So we would want to stay away from those. You can also see on the map that there is an elevation change, and you can kind of see it in the middle. I'm not really sure what they had on this property prior, but there is a slight elevation change. There's a pretty good dip in the middle of the property. So you can see that we have ingress coming off of Gibson Road. Straight into the facility, we would have a drop off and HHW area in the front, scales and scale houses, an organics processing area, and then the transfer building and trailer staging areas also shown there. The buildings that you see to the east are chicken coops. So just so you get some perspective of what's around this piece of property. Questions on this site?
I don't see any hands and I'm not hearing anyone, so I think we can move forward.
Just
Excellent.
quickly,
Oh, wait, here's one.
just from orientation standpoint, is this the property that's within the airport control area?
No, it is not.
The military road property?
No, private site L. If you can go back to the map, Danielle, which is slide 9, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so private site L, you can see it.
Oh, now I see. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Outside of the airport zone, we're staying completely out.
I see.
With this report.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back to slide 16. So we did some preliminary sizing and probable costs. And so table 6.1 is for the county site A, which is the Rainier Dropbox site. So you'll see the first line is site acquisition. The county currently owns the property, so no cost for site acquisition. There would, of course, be some earthwork, roadway utilities, stormwater, some surveying. We've costed that in. We've costed in the cost for the 24,000 square foot building scales and scale houses. You'll see that because we're preliminary, there's a lot of contingency money, and we've also done some post-pandemic pricing impact, because I think, as we all know, if we're looking at governmental construction right now, prices are very high. So we've also priced some of that in there as well. You'll see that cost for this facility is 12.7 million, basically.
Wendy, what's in consideration for contingency planning?
Contingency includes the engineering, the permitting, trying to think what else was in there. Potentially some site work, those kind of things. Okay, next table then is private site D, and you'll see cost for that, 12.85 million. You will see that site acquisition, we did some preliminary costing for potential site acquisition based on the 35 acres and what some surrounding sites have been selling for per acre. So that's $1 million. And then the site work, and then the same, basically the same transfer station, scales and scale house, and then contingency and post-pandemic pricing. Questions on private site D? Okay, next slide.
Wendy, what are all these properties zoned again?
They're all zoned rural residential resource. which means that the county can put a transfer station on them by doing got to see what we called it. They have to request an essential public facility permit in order to get a transfer station on them.
Okay, and do we have like impact study statements around, like what's the likelihood of residential being developed around them, or like other property owners desire for the use?
We haven't, so what the county requested was that we look for potential sites. And then as part of the stakeholder engagement, they noted to everybody that participated on that they would go back out with some additional stakeholder engagement once this was completed. So this report did not look at potential development around those pieces.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the last site we looked at, private site L, again, you'll see the site acquisition costs, site work, transfer building, scales and scale house, contingency, post-pandemic pricing impact, 13.95 million on this one. The reason it's a little higher is it needed, well, the piece of property is a little bit different cost-wise in the area that it's located. And then there was quite a bit of additional earthwork because of the dip in the middle of the property that would need to be done in order to make this property available for a transfer facility.
Wendy, I have one other question, I'm sorry. It talks about roadways. Is railroad access a consideration on any of these sites or general?
There's no rail access at any of these sites. They would be hauling the materials to Lewis County. What's the siting there, Jeff?
The Centralia, the intermodal.
Yeah.
It'd be hauling it directly to there versus hauling the waste as happens now to the work. So
thank you.
There was only one piece of property that had potential rail siding on it, and it was to the west of I-5 and not in the corridor that the stakeholders requested that a facility be located. So we looked at that in the first round in 2021. So that's a great question. Thank you. Okay, next slide is the next steps.
1 second. There we go.
There we go. So I think the county moving forward wants to do a confirmation in January 2024 of whether the long-term ag update has been approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and make sure that the parcels that they're looking at continue to be located out of the new designated LTA zone. I think there's quite a bit of information on the report of the updates that the county is doing to their comp plan, both for the long-term ag and the forest designations. And that was one of the high priority items that the county wanted to hopefully stay out of, was long-term ag and designated forest land. That process will, I don't think, be completed until the Board of County Commissioners confirms it in January of 2024. Then after that, the county would probably narrow the selection to the preferred site, probably do some stakeholder outreach and negotiate property acquisition cost and purchase if they choose to purchase a private site. And then they would move forward with zoning, permitting, and design. I think the last thing that the county will need to look at is reviewing construction costs. You know, construction costs have been up and down the last few years. it'd be really nice to have some normal construction costs. But that's been pretty difficult over the past few years. So, something that the county will have to look at, and then do the actual design documents and proceed with project bidding. So with that, I think that's the end of the presentation on this, and any additional questions?
Seems like we've been working on this a long time, and it's great to see this much progress. Thank you, Wendy. Any questions before we move on to our next agenda item?
I just have one on the rail topic. Is there interest in doing rail at one of these sites? I mean, if that was a factor that could be on Deal Siding, would that be to benefit? Would it actually shift rail somewhere else?
It depends. So the county is locked in with Republic Services for the next 10, potentially 20 years. So that rail would have to have access to the Roosevelt Regional Landfill, which means it's, help me, Burlington?
Yeah, BNSF.
BNSF,
what gets
yeah.
there. Yeah.
And so that's really the only rail siding that has potential to be looked at as part of this project.
Thanks for that, Greg. Richard?
Yeah, I'm always interested in solar power generation and energy storage opportunities, and I'm wondering if with any of these sites, any consideration has been given to the possibility of inviting potential contractors to piggyback on projects that would develop and or store energy at the site and provide backup power to the site as well. In terms of a long-term planning thing, I'd like to just promote the idea of including a solar project in here somehow.
I think that's an excellent thought for the county to keep in mind. A 24,000 square foot building has a pretty big roof. So that's something that the county can consider as they look at how they locate the facility, and how, solar panels might play a part of the process.
Now also consider elevated panels over both parking areas and potential tipping areas, or, other, like for instance, the organics area might be suitable for elevated panels, things like that as well.
Yep, I think that's a great suggestion. So something the county can keep in mind.
Those are great
chip in a little bit on that
suggestions.
as well. Sorry.
No, those are just great suggestions.
And we are looking at we're currently in talks with EDF Renewables. If you recall, they had a presentation here, so that is still moving forward. The potential to have a 25-acre solar array here at the Work over the old closed landfill, because I know one of the criteria that they wanted was just having adequate space to for that type of they needed 20+ acres. So we are still, that project is still alive. It was chosen by PSE the company, they put a proposal in. So the PSE did approve of their proposal, and they're working on a power purchase agreement. We're working on eventually getting them a long-term lease agreement. That's going to take a while to get there, but we have that interest in solar generation as well. So that's a good point, Richard.
I think the other thing, I just saw the comment from Steve Gilmore that they would like to look at EV vehicles as well. In the past, EV has not been acceptable for transfer trucks, but where the transfer trucks have not been able to work out quite as well as curbside trucks. But that's been changing a bit, and with the short haul to the rail. Oh yeah, and he says there's good front loaders that are EV too, which is true. There's a possibility that EV could go into the site as well.
The other thing is this material ultimately ends up at the Roosevelt landfill, where energy generation is already happening. at a pretty big level, so just something to keep in mind. Any other questions for Wendy before we move on?
Just had one.
Yes.
So, so the organics processing would mean that it's held there and then it's shipped to the work. Essentially, it's not, there's no composting going on at this transfer station, correct?
No, there would be no composting. It would be the same operation potentially as the work or something different. So we looked at two opportunities. One is to segregate the organics and then just backload it into trailers and haul direct to the work for grinding. The other possibilities is to actually grind on site. And I don't think as a startup, the county is going to know how much material is coming in until they probably have a couple years under their belt to take a look at that, because they haven't accepted organics, segregated organics in the southern portion of the county before. So we're giving a pretty big laydown area for organics, so the county can consider which option to implement in the future.
Has there been any sizing projections done on organics? Is there somebody who's looking into that, understanding as we look into commercial and different things, is the growth of organics? I would expect that it's going to blossom over the next few years. Is anybody projecting?
You'll see that we used sizing for organics based on what comes into the Waste and Recovery Center, and then looked at population in the lower valley, and that's how we sized the facility down here to handle organics. So I think we used some pretty good numbers when we looked at sizing for the organics area.
David.
Yeah, just a comment that especially that Military Road site, I mean, it's really close to Silver Spring Organic. I mean, it's like, very short trip. I could take my bicycle and take my stuff over there, It's so that would be another option as opposed to taking it to the work and then taking it somewhere else is a possibility.
Well, just remember, Dave, that the county has a long-term contract with Republic Services for handling organics and municipal solid waste. So
that's not possible, Lynn. That's too bad. Yeah. Okay, thank you for telling me that.
Any other questions for Wendy? David, I still see your hand, but I'm assuming you have made your comment, and yeah, there, we're good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. That was very informative.
So thank
you, everyone.
Oh, Jeff.
For the group. Okay, so I mean, I know we just absorbed this information and seen the report. Is there any desire, probably not at this meeting, but the next meeting, to have any further discussion on this as far as, after you've had the opportunity to absorb any preferences that you might foresee between what the options that have been provided? I mean, is that something that you would like to see move forward to the next meeting? So
Jeff, I had a question about that. Are we going to forward a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, or is this just informative?
Yet, we could, if you could definitely come up with a group as a preference of which. So I think at one point, we would do then one of the next steps is to have a briefing with the board with this report, so they have the opportunity to look at it and absorb it. And I think ultimately I think they were going to want to see and would like to see what this group, their preferences and how they, if they have a preference on one of these options. Okay. I see Karen popped up. I don't know if she has something to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say also that, part of this consideration is also going to come down to the financial piece of it, which I know was discussed and Wendy brought up, in terms of those probable costs. And we're going to need to look at it from a financial investment as well. I know we have all been tracking on the fact that there is quite a bit of money in the solid waste fund, but I'll tell you what, by the time you start looking at the costs associated with this and the work reconfiguration on the table, we're going to need to do some internal financial planning about that as well. So just in terms of kind of that process, I want to make sure we're all aware that that's a consideration as we move forward as well. So
yeah, thanks for that moment of reality. I appreciate that. Yeah, great.
Wendy, has there been any discussion about what the plan would be with the old transfer stations if you went to another, if it wasn't Rainier where it went to, what would happen to Rochester and Rainier sites? Would there be some kind of opportunity there for something else for the county or?
Potentially, and I'm gonna look at Jeff for that. They could be potentially used as backup sites. But I'm looking at Jeff too.
Certainly. I think initially the thought had been, and it really depends on which option we go with here, had been that, a new transfer site would then basically, we would probably likely at that point close the other two. However, that being said, there's been some more recent discussion that'll, for example, say if we expanded Rainier on the Rainier site, okay, that one's basically the same. Maybe there is, because that is a substantive distance from the Rochester site, versus if you had a site that was more central. Maybe they would keep Rochester open for a couple days a week or something to provide some opportunities. So I don't think that decision has been determined yet, but there's a couple possibilities there. So there definitely hasn't been a final decision made on that, or even if we're going to move forward with anything for that matter. I mean, again, this is, at this point, this is a proposal that we're looking into.
I'm sorry, I have a follow-up question on David Nightingale's comment about Silver Springs being so close. Is it, and the mention of the contract being locked in with Republic for 10 years, 20 years, if we ever looked into buying out those contracts, and do we have an understanding of what that would cost and what the balance would be and the benefit of that, if there's a.
Boy, I just know Republic has invested so much in infrastructure to make this happen. I think that'd be pretty
Naive
spendy to try.
question.
So I think, I think as background, the county went out for an RFP process in order to get into a long-term contract for operating of their facilities, transport and disposal of all of their materials. And that contract just started in May of this year. So I think it would be really premature to have open discussions about changes to that contract, because it was a really long-term negotiated process. And I think the other part of it is that the county has to be really careful that there's no conflict of interest as they talk, openly about this kind of stuff. So I understand where the question's coming from, but I think at this point, we need to be very careful about what we're talking, because the county does have a long-term contract with Republic Services, who is on this call as well. So just want to make clear that need to be careful here.
It's a naive question, so thank you for entertaining it.
No worries.
Any other comments or questions for Wendy? I'm not seeing any hands either in the room or on the screen. So Wendy, thank you again. Really informative update. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you again soon.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and with that, we will move to Laura with an update on some of the grant opportunities available through the Department of Ecology. Laura.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to, I have some quick updates that I'll run through. The grant program that's available and currently open right now is Waste Not Washington School Awards. And these are grants that are up to $5,000 for schools. So obviously not county specific, but we're trying to get the word out so that all the schools around the state hear about and have the opportunity to apply. And they're for sustainability and reward efforts to reduce waste, recycle, and teach environmental education curriculum. So those grants are open from now until October 31st for schools that want to take advantage. And lots of schools have done things like replaced styrofoam in their lines with durable goods and those kinds of things, composting and other kinds of recycling and waste reduction programs. So that's one that's out there right now. I also wanted to mention that there are outreach materials available for the new Recycle Right, Don't Bag Your Recyclables campaign. There's a toolkit available for that, and I'll pass on the link for that. As of June 1st, the expanded polystyrene, the EPS packing peanuts, and void fill are being banned for sale and distribution in the state of Washington. And so this cool toolkit is available for you to use to help get the word out about this ban and alternatives. So, and then in June 1 of 2024, the additional things will be banned, including portable coolers and food service products like containers, plates, bowls, clamshell trays, and cups. So that's coming. And then a training I wanted to mention, this just came across my desk a few days ago. SWANA is offering a moderate risk waste technical session, October 26th in Ellensburg. This is in response to local government requests for more MRW operator inspector education opportunities. And so that's one that's coming up, and SWAC members that are interested in learning more about this sort of stuff, certainly something that you can look into as well. And then on the business organics, we're in the process of developing an outreach toolkit for that will be available. And so if you're a local government or you're interested in and already working on outreach strategies to assist businesses with that, or if you're already working on that sort of thing, we'd ask that you reach out to Olivia Karos, and I will pass her email along too, because your input and insights are really essential for developing these toolkits. Or if you just have questions about it, she'd be the one to check with. So that's it for me. Tried to be quick. Happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thanks for that, Laura. And first of all, does anyone have any questions or comments for Laura? I do want to point out that Republic Services responded in the comments that they would be willing to entertain the idea of partnerships with Silver Springs and Waste Connections on the South County transfer facilities. So that's great. Thank you for that, Steve. Anything for Laura? Thanks for that update, Laura. There's some good things happening at Ecology. Thank you for that. Jeff, you're up next with our facilities update.
All right. I think Danielle's gonna put my slides up.
And while she's doing that, let me just remind you all that about 11:20 this morning, we're all going to get a very noisy alert from the National Emergency Alert System. So just be aware that that's coming in about 15 minutes. And
thank you for that.
Don't freak out.
Yeah, we'll all be okay.
We're going to be all right.
Just as a quick point out, that typically Susan Isham was one that's here to give these to you. She left the county's employment last week, so she went over to I think it was DES. So she left us. So anyway, I just thought I'd let you know, because I know you're used to having her come. So all right, let's do a little overview of our current projects. Let's go ahead and scroll down to the next. That's an overview slide. The next slide, please.
There we go.
There we go. You're probably sick of hearing about this one, maybe almost as much as I am about thinking about it as well. So the SCADA project is basically, and just let me back up, supervisory control and data acquisition. So throwing that acronym out really quick. Is basically it's a program that allows you to control. It collects data and it controls different functions around a lot of our equipment and facilities here at the Waste and Recovery Center. So you have a central spot that, a program that you can get in and open valves or collect monitoring data, has alert alarms, etc. So that's what SCADA does. This project's been going for a number of years. We're in project closeout phase now, so we're happy to be checking this one off the list. So hooray! So you should not be seeing this one on our updates anymore after this one. And then
yay! Let me just say yay.
You and me both. Yeah. The next slide should be our flare system. Basically about the same place as SCADA. The flares have been, those long and involved, and this one went a lot longer than expected because of supply chain issues. I mean, there was probably a good 9-10 months we're waiting for, so it dragged out because we couldn't get the materials for a long time. It also is in project closeout phase. The flares are working well, so again, this will drop off our timeline here next time as well. So very good. Our pump system upgrades, we're active in that and very active in that. So back in April, they experienced, again, I know it gets repetitive, people get tired of hearing about it, but supply chain delays for a lot of the materials, some of the pumps and some of the other ancillary hardware, that the contractor actually had to demobilize for about 4 months. They remobilized near the end of August, I'm sorry. So when it was originally supposed to be finished by the end of this year, they are going to be requesting a 3-month time extension because of them having to demobilize. Though they do say that they'll likely still finish before that amount of time, but anyway, so it's very active, and there's a lot of construction and activity going on around here around the work. Next up. Technology upgrades, basically, but the key one here is we've been working on this one for quite a while, is the camera upgrades here at the Waste and Recovery Center. Finally, this is, again, I know it's a broken record about supply chain issues, but we finally got the last of the cameras that we needed just recently, and the installation of all the upgraded cameras and other hardware servers as well is anticipated for later this month. So yeah, that one's been another one where 8 months to get cameras. Yeah, it's been a tough one. So there's a lot of technical stuff that's been hard to get. Next up, the Work Master Conceptual Plan. As you know, we've talked about this one before. HDR is completing the pre-design study. It should have here within a handful of days, is my understanding. So we will be bringing that, we'll have review it and be bringing that to the SWAC here shortly. So I'm hoping that we can bring that to you next month for you to get a preview of what that looks like. So it's continuing to move forward, and just to refresh your memory. So this is basically what they're creating is the basis of design, which would be the precursor to putting it out for a design and then ultimately build. So whether that's a design and design then bid and build, or whether it's a design build, we're not certain yet. But this is basically it's setting all the parameters and giving a general conceptual layout of what we'll be looking for with a lot of the requirements that we'll be needing to go into that design. So, and as well as one of the things that I'm particularly interested in hearing about will be their projected cost to build this, because as Karen just mentioned a little bit ago, between that and this proposed South County transfer, these are both going to be large ticket items. I just need to make sure budgetarily that how that's going to work out. So, and next slide. The Rainier and Dropbox site projects. Right now, again, this mini break rooms, the contractor was supposed to start at the beginning of September, but he fell off a ladder and broke his knee and his ankle. So they're finally starting this week. He had to have his rest of his, because it's a small shop, he had to have the rest of his crew finish this other job, and they're actually now working on those, starting at the Rainier break room and then moving on to the Rochester one. And what these are, they're 8 by 20. They're stick built, but just basically they'll have power, no water, no restrooms. It's a lunchroom and a break room. If you've ever been to, I know some of you have been to Rainier, Rochester. The bathroom and the little refrigerator are one and the same in the little toll booths. I mean, they're tiny, so there's really no place in bad weather or for them to sit down and have lunch, take a break, because the toll house, the little toll booths there are teeny. So this will give our staff an opportunity to sit down and have their lunch as well as we do have 2 staff from Republic that work at those sites when they're open. That's, one monitoring the recycling area, and the other one camping down waste and doing other activities around the garbage area. It gives them a place to also take a break and eat their lunch, because as it stands now, they eat in their cars. So, that's moving along finally. And next. Well, we just talked about this one. The siting study has been completed. It presented to you. You see on the timeline is that we're looking to have a presentation as far as a briefing to the Board of County Commissioners, which will likely happen in January. They're pretty well ensconced in budget process right now through the end of the year. So probably the next opportunity for us to get the report in front of them and let them see what's been, what the progress that's been made, and get their feedback on how, they would like to continue to move forward or not, basically. So, but get their feedback. And is there another slide, or is that it? Yes, one more. Oh yeah, the compactor replacement. As you know, we've talked about this before. We're going out with an RFP to have our compactor get a new one, and then the old one, or the existing one right now, will be removed and mothballed and serviced, and will be used in the work reconfiguration, where when they do that, they would put that in. So we'll have 2 compactors in the revised transfer station, which would give us that level of redundancy that we really do need. Because when the compactor's down, it's not a pretty thing out here. So the RFP has been prepared. I think we just have a couple more comments on it just to get it ready, and then it'll be going to the Board of County Commissioners meeting for them to to go ahead and put that up and open that up for proposals. So the board has to approve that. Hopefully we can get that out here shortly, and we do know that it's probably a 6 to 9 month lead time once a contractor has been chosen as far as for the build to construct a compactor. It kind of depends on what their build schedule is at the time that the contract to be awarded. So, but the RFP should be going out this fall, and then we'll see what we get. I think that's it. It is it. Okay. Any questions on any of those?
I just have to say, Jeff, some of these projects we've been working on and you've been working on for a really long time. It's great to be seeing this kind of movement now. And I know we got hung up with supply chain and all of that stuff, because we're doing that at my workplace too, but it's really nice to see these projects moving forward.
Agreed. Yeah, some of these ones, I'm like you,
exciting.
Happy to see them off the page.
Yeah, but it's exciting to see that. So thank you for that report.
Jeff, I just have one question, because I didn't quite hear it. So the existing compactor, there's going to be a brand new one, and then is the existing one going to be repaired, or be available as a second backup or whatever?
Well, yeah, going away, correct. I mean, it's working right now. I mean, it's had some issues and gone down from time to time. But yeah, they will be pulled out and essentially mothballed by SSI, who's the manufacturer. And we have a spot in the back of our facility here where we'll put it up, cover it, and like I said, mothball it until such time as it's ready to go into the new facility. And then, again, we have it, freshened up and put in. And it won't be the primary in the new facility. It'll be more the backup. So it's going to be getting a lot less cycles right now. I mean, it's the workhorse now, and it's been working harder than was initially anticipated as far as the total amount of usage. But yeah, it'll be the backup. So when the new compactor, when you need to take it down for scheduled maintenance, you have something, or unexpected downage, outages, we'll have that available. Yeah, that's probably one of the things I'm most excited about in this work reconfiguration. Because as from public health, as when we're down, the waste grows quickly, because you can't top load it out as quickly as it comes in sometimes. So.
I apologize for my little outburst there. I had to laugh with Jeff when you said it's not pleasant, or whatever your term was.
Yeah.
Because it's not pleasant when you only have one and it goes down. There's been a lot of issues with that. So it's great to see that there's gonna be a backup.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. That's going to really give us a lot more flexibility and just the kind of the insurance policy of sorts.
David.
See your hand raised.
Yes, this is regarding the moderate risk waste technical session that Swan is putting on up in Kittitas County, and I will be going to that. I'm one of the invited speakers, and so if anybody else wants to go, we should probably carpool. And so just let me know, and hopefully we'll get together and take the trip together. If anybody else is thinking of going, let me know.
It's a beautiful drive. So enjoy. Just wanted to note that Laura put some links to the things that she talked about during her quick update. So if you're interested in any of those grant opportunities or the toolkit she mentioned, take a look in the chat for that. Any other questions for Jeff before we allow him to continue with his manager's report? And
Oh,
there
there it is.
Yeah.
It's 2 minutes early. Hey, wait a second. Well, it worked.
Yeah, it did. And beautiful segue to your manager's report.
There we go. Yeah, both of my cell phones and the one in the building all beeped at me. So okay, at least I know it works. That's good news. Okay. All right. I have a list of, I think, 4 items here. First off is I wanted to update you on the SWAC membership ordinance. If you recall, I mean, I'm sure you recall that you made a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to update the ordinance to, again, about the size and makeup. So what was recommended was that we retain the SWAC as 15 members total, that we add the agricultural representative as a specific member, and that we reduce the citizen representatives from, 1 from each of the commissioner districts to just having 2 citizen members, which have to be from different commissioner districts. That was actually we actually had that board session yesterday, where we set a public hearing for October 31st to have that draft ordinance heard. So on October 31st in the commissioner's hearing room at 3:30 p.m. There'll be a public hearing on that. So I don't expect any of the public to comment or even be there or be too concerned about it. But anyway, we are following the process.
Do we need to be there, Jeff?
Excuse me?
Do we need to be there?
Actually, I was going to talk to you about that, Renee. If you
Okay, we can talk offline.
Yep, probably you and I be there, and I could,
Okay.
we'll do the presentation as you do for a public hearing. Again, and then we'll be asking the board to go ahead and make that decision, yay or nay at that time after the public hearing is closed. So again, this has been happening for, this subject has come up for other committees and boards as well. Not all of them, but a few of them. With this, any ones where they dealt with commissioner districts specifically. So that's continuing to move forward and should be done hopefully by the end of this month. Halloween, so make sure you wear a costume, right? Waste reduction and recycling grant. And I know Laura didn't mention it because it closed yesterday. But there's Ecology has a waste reduction and recycling grant that was offered to them. We did submit a grant application for that, for the tune of $60,000 of Ecology money with our $20,000 match. And it's mainly going to be programs specifically targeted at multifamily units and residents. So that's been submitted, and we have our fingers crossed that it will be awarded to us. So I see, and I want to ask Laura. I won't ask at all. But so that's in. So hopefully next month we have some good news on that. We already talked about the work reconfiguration pre-design report, so I'll skip that one. Oh, yes. So we have, as you know, Amanda Romero, who was promoted from our solid waste planner to our senior program manager back in, I think it was June, or July. So we have actually have now hired a new solid waste planner to fill a position that was vacated when she was promoted. Her name is Laura Glover. She starts on October 23rd, so in a little over 2 weeks. And we'll have her at the November meeting to introduce her to you all, because she will be performing duties like similar to what Amanda was, and being a key liaison with this committee. So we're excited. We're excited to have her. She's I think lives here in Olympia, and she'll be able to tell you more about herself when she's here next month. So that we had a couple iterations of that of trying to get somebody to fill that position, but I think we got a winner here. So, and that is it.
Jeff, do you mind if I add on to that? We just also hired a education outreach 1 person as well that is filling our vacant position. And that person is starting on November 1st, and I can remember her first name, which is Hope, and I am sorry I cannot remember her last name, so I can't share that today, but I know that she has quite a bit of experience, but fresh out of grad school at Cal Poly, but with a lot of actual recycling sustainability background while she was in that position, including some teaching. So anyway, we're excited to bring her onto that education and outreach team.
Can we have her here at the SWAC meeting in November to introduce her?
That would be great.
I would say absolutely. And why don't you check in with Scott on that?
Yeah, he was listening earlier, so yeah. Well, I don't think he's here now, but yeah, well, I'll check with Scott. But yeah, I saw her resume, and she looks really good.
Any questions or comments for Jeff or Karen before we move on to adjournment? Or let me ask this: does anybody have anything for the good of the committee that you just want to share?
I have a question.
Yes, Elaine.
I had an elderly lady contact me about roadside cleanup, and she wanted to join a team, but she couldn't do everything herself. And I wasn't sure who to give her, what name to give her to. Is there a committee for that? Like picking up trash along the road?
Well, the county does have a litter cleanup person, and a name. We do have yes, it's Carl Martin, and but basically he works underneath Amanda. So if you might want to just contact Amanda, and she could probably get that communication through. I'm not sure, and I'm not clear that, so it's not like they want to join in some sort of cleanup, not report a dumping. Then is that correct?
Okay, well, that at least I have a name to give her, and I have the number. So,
and we are there's something that we're working on over the next year. We'll be developing an adopt a road type program. We don't have it yet, but that is something that's on our list to get going here in the next year. So that kind of thing might be an opportunity for this person if they want to be kind of on a regular basis involved, in doing some roadside pickup.
And I think she is in the city limits of Tenino, so she wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah.
How that worked, and I didn't either.
Well, that is a good point. We do pick up litter outside of city limits, generally speaking. So
yeah,
on county roads.
That's actually a great question. Thanks for bringing it to the group. Anything else? Yes, Richard.
Yeah, I just remember back beginning of the year, we talked about the possibility of working in a topic in one of the meetings regarding to potential issues and impacts of climate change on our overall planning process. And I don't know if there is anything really to report along that line, but I would be interested in that topic if it's warranted. So I just wanted to mention that again.
Thanks for that, Richard. we can take a look at the agendas for the next couple of months and see what we might have. Is there anything new on that front, Jeff, that you're aware of?
Of course, we have a climate mitigation program, climate program.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
So we can check with her and see if she has anything new as far, and maybe come and give a presentation on what the county overall is doing for climate mitigation. And which reminds me, that's along that line, I think in November, we will start our planning for the upcoming year. We typically have done that, where we're looking at forward at what topics we want to have for the upcoming year. So I think we'll have a draft of of that, but I think so keep that in mind for I think for next month. So as we look at scheduling, what topics we want to have for this group for the upcoming year.
Thanks for that reminder, Richard. I appreciate that. Anything else? If not, you're gonna get 2 minutes back.
All right, that's a stage my day right there.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and this October meeting of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee is adjourned.
And thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you in a month.
I was gonna say,
No, it's great.